Kia whānau, welcome back to another walkthrough. Today I'm going to be talking about this Tāwhirimātea thigh piece that I did for the Ngās. Something a little bit different to what you may be used to seeing from me with these walkthroughs. Let's get into it. So his ideas he initially sent me were he wanted Tāwhirimātea on his thigh to represent this whakatauki from back home, or from back home in Tūhoe. And it's about going back home to where the winds of Tāwhirimātea blow. Already the idea was cool and I was keen, and I went into some sketches. So this part here, you know, just a pretty standard straight down the barrel face, and this is how I usually start my designs, just a rough sketch just to get the idea across. And from the outset I had lightning come out of his eyes, as you can see. He's got a tall top knot, hair coming down, suggestion of clouds and stuff in the background just to represent the weather and storms that are associated with Tāwhirimātea. Yeah, this is purely just to get the idea across. And then another idea was from Ngās, from the Ngās. He wanted one. This was just another idea I had of him just blowing air up, and then I was wondering what it would look like, or what it could look like if the air that he was blowing up was turning into kōwhaiwhai, turning into puhoro and stuff, and that could sort of represent that that calming and healing for some feeling that you get from going home and having it be associated to that whakatauki again. So this is obviously another one. And then with this, one of the new challenges that comes in is you can see this part of the neck now. So that's a bit more moko real estate, which is cool for me. Obviously doing moko, or moko being my main forte. So that's that idea. Next one was a bit more of a grizzled looking Tāwhirimātea, and then having one looking in toward the in midline of his body. I remember watching Miami Ink years ago, and there was a tattoo that one of them was putting on their shoulder, and they had this rule around, if it's going to be a face, to have the face pointing toward the direction of the person. So instead of having that face point outward, which may seem a bit awkward, you have it facing in. If it's not facing forward, having it facing in toward the midline of the body. So that's why he's looking this way, and I thought it was just a little bit more of a dynamic as opposed to just being bang straight on. And then also with that I could incorporate some sort of sweeping flows that follow the anatomy of the leg, and then it also could be suggestive of kōwhaiwhai as well. And then I was thinking of having it, if we were to do that route, having it be super soft as to not take away from this face, which is obviously the main focus. Some more lightning coming out of the eyes. I'm not too sure if at this point, but there was a point during our conversations, Ngās and I, where he wanted him to have no eyes, like the stories go pertaining to Matariki. So I think maybe this was the point that why I had no eyes, and that gives another dynamic to the look of him. Obviously got some Bodambu earrings, full face paho or beard, another top knot. So that's that version. Went with a full body version, with the looking up one. Obviously with a full body you've got a few more elements to play with in terms of composition. You know, you've got the whole body, you've got his flowing hair, which kind of mimics in some way this lightning that's coming from his eyes. I could have the lightning go further up the leg as opposed to when the face was the whole thing. You know, he's holding a taiaha. With the whole body you can say a bit more, but there's more technicality to doing a whole body, because you want to still keep the anatomy in proportion. You want to make it look striking, you know, look good, and not just look boring. Like, this looks alright, but kind of looks boring at the same time. Like, it's not as dynamic as he could be. But like I say, you know, these are just the early sketching stages, just to get the idea across. And then through conversation with Ngaz and I, he said he liked the one with just the face, and then wanted the one with him blowing wind up. And then I eventually moved here. And with this face too, I ended up making this face in Midjourney, which is an AI software. And the reason I did that was I don't feel too comfortable with using random people's faces who I don't know. Whereas in using Midjourney or an AI program, it can spit out a face that isn't a specific person. It was purely just for reference of the face. All the rest of it, obviously, I made up myself. So here's where the black eyes start coming in. Really just to hammer home the idea that he doesn't have eyeballs. And with this more refined version, obviously I can get a bit more detailed with his moko, get a bit more detailed with the lightning coming out of his eyes. And if you come up close, I was playing with the idea of having the lightning follow the waterline of the eyes. And the waterline, from my understanding, is that gap between your eyelashes and the inside of your eyelid. And I thought that was an interesting look. Obviously there's the contrast between the black and the white going straight along that waterline. And that's as big a contrast as you can get. Black to straight white. Yeah, I liked it. And with his hair, I sort of got rid of the top knot, and one main reason is because if I had the top knot be visible up here, especially with his head tilted up like that, so if you imagine my top knot was here, tilted my head back, this is not really where you have the top knot, you usually have it over here. And so if I had the top knot there, where you usually have it, and I tilt my head back, you can't even see it. So if I did have it visible, which is about there, it ends up being a top knot that's smack bang on the top of your head, which kind of looks a bit awkward and unnatural to me, or for the depiction that I wanted to do. So I thought, well, what if his hair was out? Also, another idea too was it kind of contrasted with the crazy looking lightning. Ngaz also wanted to have a taonga around his neck, a whakakai of some sort. So that's that version. Obviously, black mataora, black moko on his face. The only thing that I don't like about it though is it's on the dark side of his face. You know, this is all shadow. You can't really see it. But from afar, one thing though, it makes it look a bit more realistic. Because moko in real life, especially when you've had your whāhau or your beard grow in a bit, is it settles in and it's not as contrasty as when it's brand new. And so this looks like it's a bit more settled in. But for a tattoo, you know, this kind of, you want it to stand out. So that's that version. And then I was playing around with the air, you know, turning into the kōwhaiwhai. And it was okay, but I didn't really like it. It seemed like a bit too much going on, you know. And I'm sure we could have figured out a way for it to look good, but it just seemed a bit too much and a bit distracting, because you've got this detailed mataora, this super detailed lightning, and then this pretty detailed kōwhaiwhai over here. And then somewhere in behind all of that is his face, which at the end of the day is supposed to be the main focus. So we ended up scrapping that idea. But it's good to play around with it, you know, just to see if it's worth pursuing or not. And we didn't end up going down that route. What's the difference between that one and that one? Nothing. And then, oh here, so this is the AI face we had. Actually, those are my lips. So this fella wasn't doing the puckering of the lips to look like you're blowing air, so I ended up just retaking the photo myself and just superimposing my lips over the top. But we ended up going this way, and if you look at this one with the sort of calm down hair to this one, obviously a huge difference. And I remember talking to the bro kapo, actually, where was it? I think it was at my nan's tangi, and I showed him this idea, and he was like, wow, yeah, that's mean. And then he was saying it would look mean if his hair was wild as well. I said, yeah, no, I'm keen. I actually like that idea. And then I went with this, and I was like, yeah, let's give him some wild hair. And because it was on his left thigh, so this hair could sort of end up going up toward the hip area. So I did the wild hair, and then I was like, you know what? Because at that point I was kind of experimenting with pulling back, because most of the time when I do out there ideas for clients, it's too much and they always want to pull it back. And then for this particular version, I was like, let me just do a freaking handy-ass crazy idea that he'll probably say no to, but I'm keen to explore anyway. So I just did this idea with this crazy moko, and you know, an asymmetrical moko. It's not perfectly symmetrical, you know, and you've got these little crooked bits in here, and you know, like there's a koru over there, but there's not one over there. You know, it's imperfect. There's a koru over there, none over there, there's a gap over there. All of these cool little delicious textures and this delicious character all in here. Yeah, so I threw all those together, and then I sent it off to Ngaz, and he was keen. I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. And obviously having his moko like that, as opposed to just having lightning, presented different challenges. I was like, oh, what if his moko followed, you know, a bit of the flow of the hair? And it's, yeah, just added a whole new dynamic to the look of it, and obviously a pretty unique take on Tāwhirimātea. And then with the taonga too, I think at the time I was looking at some taonga from, I don't even know who it was, might have been Rangi Kipa or some other master, just for some inspiration. And at that point I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do one that's just like a heimato or something that's a bit freaky looking, like it's kind of blocky, and something that just added to this kind of alternate take or non-traditional take of Tāwhirimātea. Sent it off, and then yeah, the bro was keen. This version right here, just to give him an idea of size and placement on the thigh. And then there's this thing that I do, and I got the idea from Mr. Cho Shin, actually, who's an amazing tattooist, who's been a huge inspiration to my realism tattoos over the past decade. As he does a layer and he switches it to multiply, just so all of the black comes through, and then the white is the color of the skin that's underneath, and then that's a bit more of a realistic version of how it would look on the skin. Obviously that taonga is different now, so that's, you know, that's a pretty traditional, straightforward route I was going, and then we ended up going with that one which in my opinion looks way better. And that was the final one. And then here's the video, and here's some photos of the final version that we ended up doing for him. Really happy with the results. It ended up taking 4 sessions. It shouldn't have taken 4 sessions, it should have just taken 3. But I was experimenting with one of my new machines, and it wasn't working exactly how I wanted to. It ended up taking longer. And we ended up just doing a 4th session for free. Just to finish it, and then it was way better. That session was better, things went well, and these are the results. But this is the whole video whānau of my breakdown of the process for making this Tāwhirimātea piece for the Bronars. If you'd like some mahi like this, send me a message. And if you've come this far and you've watched this whole video, I hope you fellas enjoyed it and there was some value in it. See you fellas in the next one. Cheers.